Well, there's a lot to talk about here. Let's start with what appears to be an ultimatum from President Trump to Hamas. What do you make of that?
Well, it's interesting because we've been watching this play out. I think this is the fourth time that the president has issued an ultimatum to Hamas, threatening to unleash hell on them. Look, what he's already done is this: he's given the Israelis everything they need in order to completely destroy Hamas. He's given them those 2,000-pound bombs, those MK-84s. He's replenished a lot of the other arsenal that they had depleted over a course of time where the Biden administration was refusing to replenish. So the Israelis are made whole militarily. They now have the political backing of the president. The president says he wants to see all the hostages released and he wants Hamas out of the Gaza Strip. So right now, there's very little else that the president could do to tip the scales in Israel's favor. What he has done, though, and we've just learned about this over the last 24 hours, is he has actually dispatched Steve Witkoff and his team. This is the president's envoy to the Middle East. He's negotiating directly with Hamas. I don't know what they're talking about behind closed doors, but I think it's fascinating that he's talking to them with, with one of his staff, and then he's tweeting at them saying, I'm going to destroy you if you don't do what I ask you to do. So this is hardball that we're watching him play. I'll be fascinated to see what happens. I think Hamas is ready to fight this thing to the finish, but I think that would be disastrous for Gaza. I would welcome a Reagan-esque plan like we saw in Lebanon, where Hamas is put on a boat or a plane. The top leaders are sent out of the Gaza Strip, never to be returned. That would be the ideal outcome. That way Israel doesn't have to keep fighting, and we can start to think about maybe what happens in Gaza when the fighting finally stops.
Yeah, well, you would imagine that Qatar would be a logical destination for any of the remaining key leaders of Hamas to end up residing there. But you mentioned the direct negotiations, right, between U.S. I believe the hostage envoy Adam Bowler for the U.S. side supposedly has been talking to Hamas directly about the U.S. hostages. But it sounds as if, at least what's coming out of the White House, sounds as if they've broadened that discussion, a direct conversation with Hamas to include perhaps the other hostages as well as perhaps a peace settlement of some sort. What do you make of that? Because the U.S. policy has always been not to negotiate with terrorist organizations.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. We've been negotiating with terrorists for a long time. We negotiated our own defeat in Afghanistan under Joe Biden. We continue to negotiate with Iran, the world's largest state sponsor of terror. I think the United States has given up on this. This was a principle first introduced into American foreign policy under Richard Nixon. It, I think, held for a time, has not held for quite a long time since. I mean, we have indirect negotiations with Hezbollah that are ongoing. I mean, we don't hold ourselves to this. I think it's interesting that the conversations are happening. But the only thing that I would say that it's positive about this is that it does look like, again, that the president's playing hardball, with his envoys. And I think that's really, if you're going to negotiate with the terrorist group, you should be baring your teeth and threatening to destroy them. That's the kind of negotiation I can endorse.
But is there a danger that, I mean, you pointed out this was not the first ultimatum from the White House. Is there a danger that it's just perceived as hollow by Hamas and certainly by the Iranian regime that backs them?
Yeah, there certainly is a danger. And I think, we may have actually reached that point where Hamas is saying, you already gave the Israelis what you said you were going to give them. I've already seen your threats. Not sure what else you can do to us because we're effectively destroyed anyway. So you know what? We're going to go back to the fighting just to stick a finger in your eye. And that's actually quite possible. But I got to say, like I said, the Israelis have everything they need in order to win this battle. I will warn, though, that whatever fighting does take place in Gaza, it will not be easy to watch. Because when you think about it, Hamas is already, they started at, let's say, 35,000 fighters, between 5 and 10,000. Most of these guys are new recruits. They're young men in tracksuits who probably don't even know how to fire their AK-47s properly. They are not hardened fighters. They're going to get shellacked on the battlefield. I think that is fairly safe to say. The Hamas doesn't have any above ground infrastructure. Most of that underground infrastructure is not usable. Sure, they probably have some missiles left, some rockets. None of those are going to be particularly effective against Iron Dome. I just don't see how they think they're going to win this thing. You get a sense that they're willing to fight and die for the cause and maybe try to inspire future generations of hatred against Israel, the United States, the West. That may be their strategy, but this could be rather grim to watch.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.